Hey guys, Sam here, and yes, I am going to give you guys my thoughts and opinion on The Last of Us Part 2, or Last of Us 2, whatever you want to call it. And I figured it was best to talk about it now, because, well, the heat has definitely died down on this, and it isn't really talked about as much as it was when it first came out, like a little more than a month ago. So I figured this would probably be a good time to talk about it. I mean, I'm sure there's still people that are making their videos on this game. I'm sure there's going to be more people that will constantly be saying, oh, this game was actually good all along. Or there might be other people going, oh, it actually is worse than you think. You know, all that other shit. So, if you guys are wondering what my thoughts are on The Last of Us Part 2, well, let me tell you what my original first thought was. At the start, after I saw all the cutscenes, after I saw the walkthroughs, after I saw how the gameplay would go down, and I saw a lot of the character moments, a lot of the big dramatic moments, and the ending, I watched it all, and at first, I was really just thinking it was a mixed bag. Like, you know, a simple 5 out of 10. An average game has some decent things, while, of course, having some not decent things. But I really didn't think it was, like, super duper bad. At least not as bad as a lot of people were making it out to be. But after watching some of the stuff again, like a few more times, and watching a couple other videos of people's other thoughts, and now, after thinking about it for a bit, I don't really think it's a mixed bag anymore. And now, I actually do have to come to grips with it and say that, yeah, The Last of Us Part 2, in my opinion, is a bad game. But, in a story perspective. Now, if you're talking about animations and graphics and gameplay, it's definitely not. I mean, that's like one of the biggest positives in this game. I mean, the graphics are amazing. Like, look at this stuff. I mean, just look at it. It's probably some of the best graphics I've seen on the PS4. And a big gigantic coincidence is that when the first Last of Us came out, it was right at the end of the PS3's reign, and that's when the PS4 came in. And then eventually that game was remastered on the PS4, and the graphics were just as good there as it was on the PS3. So I'm guessing that could probably happen with the new PS5 that's coming out soon. And I kind of wonder what will happen to the graphics then. I mean, like, the possibilities are endless. I mean, yeah, it's really friggin' beautiful. The facial animations, the environments, the realistic mud and the snow, like everything. And the blood too, and the designs on the different zombies, like the runners and the clickers. Like, they're fantastic. That is nearly perfect. And the gameplay, I actually still think is pretty fun. I mean, yeah, that's one flaw I will say right out of the gate is that the gameplay pretty much is almost a carbon copy of the first game. Like, literally almost pretty much the same as the first game. Like, you know, the customization, the beating up when clickers and stuff like that, the same death game over screens that you'd get in the last game. Like, it is almost the exact same thing, but there is only maybe like one real true advancement, and that is you can prone in the grass now. That's really the only thing. So yeah, it basically is the same thing, but it's still fun. It's still fun to still punch zombies, it's still fun to shoot them, it's still fun to do all this cool stuff. Some action scenes are pretty okay, they could be decent. Sometimes they don't make any sense, like there's plenty of moments where I think some of the characters could have died. Or actually not could have, should have died. But they ended up getting saved through dumb luck or just, oh, because they're the main characters, they can't die yet. Or they get some kind of plot armor and stuff like that. So yeah, repetitive gameplay, but still fun. And of course there are still some Easter eggs here and there, like there's actually a couple moments where you could find references to other Naughty Dog games. There was even a moment where you go on this one mission with Dina, and I think it's at the house, and where they eventually go ahead and smoke weed. Like, there's actually, if you keep on searching through this one room, you can actually find a PS4. Or a PS3, I think. It doesn't matter, but it's still a PlayStation console. So that's kind of cool. And I did hear that there also was an Easter egg with a PS Vita, but for some reason you couldn't actually pick it up and put it in your backpack, which is kind of weird, but I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. So yeah, but still fun to see it in the game though. There's still some other good Easter eggs, and of course there's also these little playing cards, like with the different identities and different powers and stuff like that. Like, that was also kind of cute too. And there's still some more good stuff in this game, like the voice acting, for instance, from every single character. Like, it's really phenomenal. I mean, Ashley Johnson as Ellie once again brings her A game. Troy Baker, despite not getting as many scenes as he did in the first game, he still does do a good job. And yes, the actress who plays Abby, Laura Bailey, does do a phenomenal job. Despite all the stuff that goes around with the character, but don't worry, we'll talk about that later. But the acting from every single person in this game, every single, like, the facial animations, like, the way they deliver their lines, they do a solid job. They really do. They do bring their A game, and I really did. I really was immersed in their performances. I really was. So, those are definitely the best qualities in this game. So, this game is definitely not a total loss. But what really does lose me is the story and how it plays out. So, like I said before, it's not a bad game in the animation, graphics, gameplay, Easter egg, or performance perspective. Those are fine. Those are great. But it's the story. That's what makes the game bad in a story perspective. Because, well, I can't find another way to say it, but it's stupid. It's a stupid story. Like, and it's stupid in the way that, like, they tried to, like, do new things. They tried to add new characters. They tried to do some dramatic moments that they felt. I'm sure that the writers were trying to feel like maybe these could be just as heavy as the first game, and they just weren't. So, yeah, the story is that now Ellie and Joel are now living in Jackson County, which is actually someplace in Wyoming, if you guys don't know. And so far, they're like one of the and there's some contributing members. Like, they're just living out a simple life there, doing their daily chores and stuff like that, checking out to see if there's any clickers and runners about, you know, kind of having some fun, you know, having their own little lives there. But then, of course, we find out that there's another group hiding out just outside of Jackson, and that ends up having the character Abby, the most infamous character right now in recent memory. And anyway, Abby ends up coming across Joel and his brother Tommy when she was trying to escape from the zombies, clickers, runners, whatever they're called. Like, I don't really care. I'm just gonna call them zombies for the rest of the video. So anyway, they go back with her to their base. They introduce themselves, and then after a bit of silence, Joel just goes like, "It's like you kind of heard of us or something." And Abby's like, "Oh, that's because they have." And then they shoot him in the leg, and then they knock out Tommy, and then they're about to kill Joel, and they do. Joel dies. I think everybody already knows that by now. So, yeah. And yes, it is true. He dies by a golf club. Which, again, really fucking stupid. Yeah, I'm just gonna come out of the gate. Joel dying by a golf club is fucking stupid. Now, let's say if it was a baseball bat, I can understand that. I mean, like, that's at least more believable. I mean, like, but why a golf club? That's really the best they could come up with? Like, how should, like, Abby beat up Joel? Oh, I know! A 4-iron! So, yeah. And what really makes the death not really that meaningful and dramatic is not only do they just get it right out of the gate, like in the first couple hours, they immediately kill him. Like, it's really rushed, it doesn't really make any sense. And with the way the story is paced, it just didn't really feel that earned. And so for the rest of the game, Now it's just pretty much a revenge story for Ellie to go and to try and avenge Joel's death. That's pretty much what the rest of the game that's pretty much how it goes down. Like Ellie and Dina, who are apparently in a relationship right now. I mean, like the relationship is fine. Like there's some people that go crazy for it, and I can understand it. I can, and it's okay. It's not the greatest relationship, and I'm not saying that because I'm not saying it because they're lesbians. I'm not saying it's because of that. It's just there's a lot of other lesbian relationships that are more, meaningful and more, I don't know, like just better developed than Ellie and Dina's. But they're fine. They're fine. So anyway, they go all the way to Seattle, and they end up killing almost everyone they find. They end up killing like random people. They kill the people that are associated with Abby. They kill dogs, which is a morally gray area. Like I really don't like to kill dogs. Like, I mean, I know what you're thinking. Oh, wait a minute. You get to kill dogs in other games like Call of Duty. Well, here's the thing. You at least only kill maybe a couple of them, and it just is a split-second moment. In this game, there's you play as Ellie and Abby for most of this game, and in the Abby sections, when you're around dogs, you're playing with them, like you're petting them, you're throwing their chew toys around, like you're having a lot of fun with the animals. But in the Ellie sections, you're just basically, bludgeoning them, or shooting them with arrows, or stabbing them with knives. Which, yeah, great. Hopefully there's not a lot of PETA players that played this. Hopefully. So we don't have to get another stupid tweet from them. Yeah. So, yeah. Again, I'll also get this one right out of the gate, too. Abby is not a good character. She's not. And this character tries so hard to make her an interesting character. And they try to give her a good backstory, like the real reason why she kills Joel is because Joel killed, Abby's father, who was one of the doctors that was operating on Ellie when they were trying to extract the cure from her, which could have ended up having Ellie dead. So, yeah, I guess it was one of those, actions that came back to bite Joel in the ass, I guess. Or came back to hit him in the back of the head, or the side of the head with a golf club. I don't know. Whatever expression you want to use. So yeah, I can definitely understand that. But just because it's explained doesn't mean, oh yeah, because of that backstory, and of course, with the other sections, trying to make her a likable character, they'll make her a good character. No, it doesn't. I don't give a crap about Ellie. I really don't. I'm sorry. Abby. I meant Abby. I meant to say Abby. I don't give a crap about Abby. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is unscripted, as you can tell. But, point is, we did not wait all this time just so we could play Abby. We wanted to play as Ellie. I mean, this was advertised for nearly 2 years. We had a few trailers. It got delayed for a bit, and finally came out this year, and it was supposed to, it was touted as, yes, this is Ellie's game. We're going to play as Ellie. We're going to be behind her, and of course, there's probably going to be a dramatic story somewhere, but Joel, of course, will be right along with her for the ride. And not only does it not happen throughout the entire game, it only happens maybe, in a few flashback sequences between Joel and Ellie, which I will admit are good. I mean, those are actually some of the best parts in the game when, Joel and Ellie, the two characters that we did care about so much in the last game. So yeah, I care more about seeing them interact. I care more about their flashbacks than seeing Abby interact with Mel, the pregnant lady, or with Owen, which results in a sex scene between the two of them, which, of course, I'm not going to show you, because, 1, it would get my video flagged, 2, I don't need to get myself a claim because I'm not showing any of the clips in the video game, because I don't need to deal with that, and number 3, it's just, no. I understand, there's some games that want to try and do sex scenes, to build up chemistry, but Abby and Owen never really seemed like they had, the chemistry to be a couple, and wasn't Owen already with Mel? Owen was the one that got Mel pregnant, and then they just throw this sex scene right out of nowhere. Why? I don't understand it. I mean, I guess if you're a horny pervert, I'm sure you might enjoy it, but for the rest of us, no. Just no. No. In fact, I think maybe the one good thing that came from that scene was, like, in Angry Joe's review, when he talks about, like, when he was actually playing it, after the scene was over, and it ends up cutting to, like, when Abby finally finds out that, her father is dead, like, Joe and his friends were, like, talking, and Angry Joe was just like, Sony doesn't really, like, allow these kind of sex scenes, so Neil Druckmann, one of the writers on this one, was like, yeah, maybe we should be adamant about, like, come on, we gotta get this sex scene in there. I mean, like, come on, Abby's getting fucked! Like, come on. I want her to be doggy style and stuff like that. Like, and, yeah, that was the funniest thing to come out of all this. Aside from that, it's a really pointless sex scene. There was no reason for it to exist. Not at all. And look, if some of you are thinking, oh, you're just hating Abby because she's transgender, I don't care. If she's transgender, then okay, great. But being a transgender woman is not your entire character. It's, like, everything you do, like, everything you say, what your actions are, and she's just not a good character at all. And even the new characters they do introduce, I mean, the ones in Jackson, like Dina and Jesse, they're fine, but again, they're just not really given much time to grow. And as for Jesse, I mean, like, he was likable, he was kind of cool, but his death scene just comes and goes. Like, he gets shot in the face and bam, you don't remember him anymore. And, yeah, just really stupid. Tommy not really being that great of a character either, and even in the scenes where Joel is in, it's just, that's the one big problem, that's one of the biggest problems with this game. Like, they just handle these characters in a way that it just doesn't feel like them at all. I mean, I get Ellie wanting to be darker and everything like that. And I understand, like, wanting to get her revenge and all this other crap. But again, we've seen this revenge plot done so many times, and not just video games, but movies and TV shows everywhere. And this one just doesn't really do anything different. Of course, they try to have the morally gray moments where Ellie kills Mel, who still is pregnant, and then she ends up killing Owen. And then, of course, like, Abby gets angry at her. And then there happens to be a moment where you control Abby and you try to hunt down Ellie and you beat the crap out of her, which, again, is stupid. Like, nobody wanted to play this. Like, if all these producers and writers and directors were really this concerned, and they really were so determined to really make us like Abby, to, like, create this character and really make her, like, a mainstay, like, one of the best characters to come out of this, then, no. If they were so concerned about Abby, like, more than Ellie, then why do they feel the need to make a sequel to The First Last of Us? Because that was phenomenal. Great characters, real good tension, phenomenal drama, and an ending that, yeah, some can debate whether it's, like, a good or a bad one, but, again, that's the great thing about it. It's a morally great one. It's up to you to decide whether it was really the right thing or wrong thing to do, what Joel did at the very end. You already know that, I'm sure. But yet, in this one, like, even the ones that try to be morally gray, it just doesn't work out. And what also is stupid, too, is that when Abby gets her revenge, everything is good. But when Ellie tries to get her revenge, at the very end, she just backs out of it. She decides, you know what, I'm not gonna do it. Because, again, the game tries. They try desperately to make you care about Abby. Trying to make her sympathetic. Trying to, like, make her, like, some kind of, like, mentor to these two Vietnamese kids, I think. I don't know. I want to, you can let me know what they were. But again, I didn't really remember them because, again, the game didn't really make me care about them that much. I'm sorry, I just never cared about the new characters. I never cared about Manny, I never cared about Mel, I never cared about Owen, and of course, I never cared about Abby. As hard as these actors and actresses are trying, I just never cared about them because the writing, the pacing, and how they handled each character was just horrible. I'm sorry, but it just wasn't a good story at all. And even with the flashbacks, I mean, as good as some flashbacks are, there really didn't need to be any. And the way the pacing goes in this game is just really stupid. Like the stuff with the flashbacks, like, you didn't have to, like, do any of those flashbacks at all. It just leaves the plot very disjointed. Like, it's just very weird. It's just a very weird way to tell the story. And And honestly, I do have to agree with what Angry Joe said, like, as a better story, like, you know, maybe play as Abby first, like, with what happened to her father and stuff like that, and then it turns out it's actually Ellie and Abby that ends up being the duo. Like, Ellie still ends up having to fall out with Joel and stuff like that, and then Ellie and Abby end up becoming the duo. They have their own little adventures, but then eventually, when Abby figures out who Ellie and Joel is, then you have the death scene with Joel. And then, of course, like, maybe that could happen around maybe, like, nearly the end of the second act, or just before the third act comes. That's when you really should have done it, instead of just trying to get the death out of the way, just like that. Like, why? And we only play as Joel for, like, maybe even less than 5 minutes. Why? I mean, Joel was the character we controlled the most in the last game. He had the much more heartbreaking backstory. He was the one that had the better connection. He was the one that had the better development. So why just throw him to the wayside like this? And even for Ellie too, it just seems like there's like they care more about making Abby look good, and yet and they're also more concerned with making Ellie look bad. I don't understand it. It's just really ridiculous. Like, I don't know how many times I can say it. So, yeah, the story is crap, and the ending is just fucking stupid. And also, you remember that one line in the first Last of Us where Ellie said that one of her biggest fears was to be all alone or have the people that she cared about died? Well, that's exactly what happened! Jesse died? Dina is gone, and she took the baby. Yeah, it turns out, like, after that little incident where Abby beats the crap out of both Ellie and Dina, they finally settle down and have the baby together. And then eventually Ellie ends up getting reminded by Tommy about her promise, like, you know, to kill Abby to avenge Joel's death. And Dina says, if you go, I'm gonna leave. And Ellie ends up going anyway. And the thing is, Ellie doesn't even go through with it. She lets Abby go. And then when Ellie comes back to the house in Wyoming, Dina and the baby are gone. It's all cleaned out. And also, keep in mind, when Ellie was fighting Abby at the very end, she lost 2 fingers. So, she can't even play the fucking guitar anymore. I mean, like, that was actually, I will admit, the guitar minigame is actually pretty cool, I will say that. And I've seen a lot of videos where people have tinkered around with it and made their own versions. Like, I've seen people use the guitar for songs like Let It Be, or Johnny Cash's Hurt, like, all those other good songs. Like, that's pretty cool. But anyway, Ellie, she can't play the guitar as well anymore because she lost 2 of those fingers. Then we get one more flashback sequence where it turns out that Joel and Ellie still didn't really come to, like, you know, they didn't really resolve everything. I mean, like, Ellie said, like, she can't really forgive him right away, but she wants to try. And that was, like, the last real interaction they had with each other. And then we cut back to Ellie, she puts the guitar down, and then she leaves the home all alone, broken, empty, and just, that's it. That's the game. I mean, I can understand some games wanting to have a depressing ending, but it's gotta actually have some weight to it and make sense. This game, no, it did not make any sense. I'm sorry. The dramatic moments they tried were either manipulative or just not as dramatic as they could have been, or should have been. The characters weren't fully developed, the writing was whack, the pacing was poor, and even the stuff that actually was still good, like the gameplay, that's repetitive as hell. Again, the only real new innovation in it is that you can prone. That's it. And even when you actually do have the action scenes, there's a lot of really dumb moments. Like, there's this one sequence where Ellie is tied up, like, on the floor, and there's 2 goons around there, and they're debating on whether to kill her or not. And then Dina crashes through the window, lands on her back, and then one of the goons just, like, you know, is looking around and standing there, not knowing what the hell to do. And yeah, and Ellie ends up saying later, like, yeah, they fucked up. And he's like, yeah, sure, but they didn't have to. They could have died, right? And there's a lot of scenes where a lot of these main characters should have died. But yet it didn't happen because the story demands it. Like, again, even when Abby had a knife up to Dina's throat, that could have been a really, really heartbreaking scene if Abby really did slice Dina's throat. Like, you know, Ellie ended up killing Mel, who was pregnant, so Abby would want to do the same thing. But no, she doesn't do it. She just lets Dina go, walks and gets up, walks away, leaves Ellie and Dina on the ground, bloodied and battered and bruised and everything like that. So, yeah, it just, ugh. And there's just more dumb moments on top of it. Like, Mel, like, with all these combat missions that, you know, Abby was a part of, I mean, like, I guess they can be kind of fun, but they still do have their dumb moments, too. Like, again, I never really cared if Abby survived or accomplished this mission. I never really cared about the other characters. And Mel, who happens to be pregnant, decides, you know what, I'm still gonna go out in the field. No! You're pregnant! Stay at home until you finally give birth! No! That's stupid! I mean, I get there were a couple of dumb moments in The Last of Us, like the first game too. Like, how did Ellie get Joel back to the cabin, like when he was, like, you know, extremely wounded and stuff like that. And a couple other dumb scenes in there as well. Like, I can definitely understand some people point out, oh, but the first Last of Us even had some dumb moments, but at least that one had a better story. That one had better characters. That one had better drama. And that one actually had a really smart, gray, and thought-provoking ending. And it had two characters that you did care about and want to see survive. And now that I really think about it, I think it really should have just been that game and nothing else. It really could have just been that. I mean, like, yes, I guess there could be material for a sequel, but why this way? Nobody cared about Abby. I mean, in any of the, like, when you first saw the new teaser trailer for The Last of Us 2, when you saw Ellie playing her guitar, then Joel comes in to talk to her, and you see Ellie's face, and then, of course, it gets to black, and you see Last of Us 2. Like, did you really think, oh, I want to see a new character come in, and I want to control that character, and maybe even potentially kill Ellie? No! Nobody wanted to see that! And what made it worse was that it was the leaks. A couple months before the game came out, or maybe a month ago, I'm not sure. Before leaks came out, and pretty much a lot of it was spoiled. Joel dies by a golf club. A lot of the other stuff that, you know, the leaks were, a lot of the rumors, like, most of it happened to be true. A lot of the stuff that the leaks were telling about, they did happen. And some people were like, what? There's no way. There's no way that could happen. And yet, we finally get the game, and wow. Is this really it? This is The Last of Us 2? This is the sequel to one of the best zombie games ever? I mean, oh my god, now I understand why the Blues Brothers fans were definitely frustrated when they saw Blues Brothers 2000. Like, it's pretty much almost the same thing as The Last of Us. Like, the first one, fantastic, memorable, so many great moments, so many iconic moments, and of course, two characters that we obviously love and we want to see succeed. And then we see Blues Brothers 2000, they added a new character that nobody gave a fuck about. There also was new stuff that had nothing to do with the original, and yeah, this is basically the Blues Brothers 2000 of video game sequels. I mean, even for me, I like Last of Us 2. I mean, I like the first Last of Us fine. I mean, I know, I'm not gonna go out and say it's like a masterpiece or anything like that. Honestly, I'm more into the Walking Dead video games. Those are my favorite zombie games. But I do understand why people do like the first Last of Us, and I have the game, and I definitely did enjoy it. It was frustrating at times, sure. And yeah, a couple dumb moments, and there's some times that the AI can be really stupid, but it still was a solid game. And it definitely did have a lot of dramatic, badass, really heartfelt, and sad moments. So, yeah. And those are elements that The Last of Us 2 doesn't have. It's not as dramatic as the first one, it's not as well written as the first one, it's not as well paced as the first one, and the ending, even whether you think it's the best thing that Joel could have done or the worst thing that could have done, at least it actually allows you to think about it. Like, it's one of those morally great endings. Like that's something that can happen in some certain stories. Point is, it was up to you to decide whether you think that happened or this happened. Like, some good stories can have that, and that's what the first Last of Us did. And all the other stuff that you were more concerned about, like The Cure, the Fireflies, really trying to, like, find a way to, like, really get the world back, you know, to normal or anything like that. Or how do you still handle living in the apocalypse? How they... I mean, like, all the stuff that was happening in Jackson, I really wanted to explore more of that. Instead of the usual, oh, revenge against Abby, and of course the simple, revenge is really bad, it'll consume you and stuff like that. Okay, look, sometimes that message can work, but in a game where you control Ellie, that ends up killing almost everyone she finds in Seattle, and then finally when you go after the character you do want to kill, and yet you don't, like, it's like a complete 180. It's hypocritical. Like, yeah, you can kill all those other people, but not the one that you really want to kill. So, and yeah, Abby killing Joel, yeah, that's great. Ellie wanting to kill her, bad. Like, I'm sure that the writers were really trying to, like, maybe do something different, maybe throw some people off, maybe subvert expectations, and sometimes that can be a good thing. But just because you can subvert expectations doesn't mean it'll always turn out to be good. And just because you explain something doesn't mean it ends up being great anyway. So yeah, I definitely do understand a lot of the stuff that happens. I understand why Abby is frustrated and wants to angry and wants to kill Joel. I understand why Ellie wants to kill Abby. I understand why Abby wants to get back at Ellie for Ellie killing her friends. I understand all the other stuff. I do. It is explained. I can definitely understand that. But I just didn't care. It just was not a good story at all. So, yeah. In a story perspective, this game is bad. And now, if some of you are asking, is this the worst sequel to a video game ever? No, of course not. There are lots of other video game sequels that are far worse than this, with worse graphics and an even worse story, okay? And also, like, you know, a lot of other stuff that goes with it, like the gameplay. Like, there's lots of other video game sequels that are just as bad. Like, those who actually have poor gameplay, really poor AI, lots of glitches. I mean, that's something that this game, Last of Us Part 2, it doesn't really have that much. Sure, it does have a couple of AI bugs from time to time, but sometimes the AI can actually be pretty smart and can throw you for a loop sometimes. The graphics, like I said before, aren't astounding, and the gameplay, while being repetitive and mostly a carbon copy of the first one, is still fun. You still get to customize your weapons, you still get to have, like, shotguns or arrows or anything like that. It's still fun to, like, you know, kill things, I guess, and kill the zombies, of course. But, yeah, so it's definitely not the worst sequel, not the worst video game sequel to a phenomenal game ever. No, it's not that. But is it one of the most disappointing? Yes. Yes. It is very, very, very disappointing. A game that lots of people were really psyched to want to play. Like, how about this? A sequel to The Last of Us. Like, that would be phenomenal. Like, what would happen to Joel and Elliot and, like, all this stuff. It was finally, like, the way the game looked, the way the trailers went about things, like, it seemed like it actually was going to be a very good sequel. But then when we finally got the game, it just didn't deliver. It just didn't. It delivered in the graphics department, I can tell you that much. I mean, the detail and the animations are phenomenal. It definitely delivered in that front. But in a story, character, pacing, writing, and ending perspective, no, it didn't. So yeah. Originally, I was gonna give this a 5 out of 10. Again, like I said before, I was gonna say it was gonna be a mixed bag. But now, after like looking it over again and again, and realizing more flaws, and realizing what the story could have been, that score goes from a 5 out of 10 to a 3 out of 10. It is a bad game. It does still have some good elements, I will say that. The romance between Ellie and Dean is okay. The fighting, while, again, the same thing as the first game, is still fun. And the graphics, again, like I said before, amazing. The detail, like, I mean, just look at the game. I mean, like, if you just put it on mute, and you just watch the game that way, just watch the cutscenes and how it went down, like, it really is beautiful. It really is. So, yeah. That's my final verdict for this game. It's a 3 out of 10. And if you want to play the game, if you want to, like, you know, sit through the cutscenes and stuff like that, that is up to you. And if you still want to see the sequel to The Last of Us, and you still want to, like, have some of that badass moments, and of course some good graphics, and maybe a few good, like, you know, heartfelt moments, then I'm sure you could stomach this one fine. But if you're looking for a really, really, really good sequel that really, like, not only can compare with the first one, but maybe could even be better, and just as dramatic, and just as meaningful, then this is not the one. This is not the one you're waiting for. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, my name is Sam, and good night, everybody. And also, happy birthday to me. Now I'm actually 20 years old. And the funny thing is, there's still people that think I'm younger than that. There's actually people that were thinking I'm 17. Just, do I really look that young? Like, seriously. Okay, I'm just gonna end it there. Bye-bye.